Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lisa Mackenzie. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at the European Marine Energy Centre, also known as EMEC. For those of you that aren't familiar with EMEC, we are the world's leading test and demonstration site for wave and tidal energy technologies, and we're based in the Orkney Islands off the north of Scotland. Over the last couple of years, we've been working closely with West of Orkney Windfarm on developing an offshore wind research and innovation programme to help address some of the challenges that will be faced in developing a wind farm in the really harsh conditions that we experience to the west of Orkney. So I'll be your host for this webinar today, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Heather Turnbull. She's the project manager for the R&I programme, and she'll be providing an overview of the programme. And that'll be followed by a presentation from Stuart Brown, associate for offshore wind at EMEC, who will cover the work that's been done to develop the challenge areas and an overview of the innovation call as a whole. Heather will then follow that with an overview of the application process. And we've also allowed some time at the end of the session to answer any questions that you might have. So please do submit your questions into the Q&A function in Zoom throughout the webinar, and we'll get them at the end after the presentations. We've also got Mike Hay, Deputy Project Director for West of Orkney Windfarm, and Grant Leishman, Performance Test Engineer at EMEC, here to help answer any questions that you might have. And we've got Erica Kemp and Abby Sinclair supporting behind the scenes today as well. So any questions that you have, please add them into the Q&A function throughout the webinar. You can upvote questions, so if somebody asks a question that you were wanting to ask, please upvote it, and that'll help prioritise them for what we choose to go through at the end. And yeah, just thank you again for joining us today, and I'll pass you over to Heather to get us started.
Hello, and thanks again for joining us to talk about our exciting new research and innovation opportunity. So just want to start with a bit of context. Many of you may be familiar with the ambitious ScotWind development plans, however may not be familiar with the magnitude of the expected developments and the impact this will have on Scottish renewables. So as a direct result of the ScotWind leasing rounds, as much as 27.6 gigawatts of new generating capacity will be built in Scottish waters over the next decade. This statistic really hits home when you put it into context, as the current offshore wind power capacity in the world is around 64.3 gigawatts. This really shows a determination and an ambition from Scotland to bring economic benefit and boost clean energy generation. West of Orkney Windfarm, who are with us on the call today, were the first ScotWind project to have applied for offshore consent and submitted their onshore planning application in October last year. I'm really pleased to be speaking with you today about EMEC's newly launched £1 million offshore wind research and innovation programme sponsored by the West of Orkney Windfarm. Go to the next slide, please. That would be great. So the main objective of this programme is to overcome specific technical challenges and accelerate innovation capability for offshore wind throughout Scotland, the UK, and further afield. We really want to find innovative solutions that will reduce time, cost, and risk associated with offshore wind, while enhancing supply chain capacity in the region. We're looking for projects that will bring a clear and justifiable benefit to the West of Orkney Windfarm, but also to the offshore wind sector in general. The programme aims to help businesses grow, to create jobs, bring skills, capabilities, and economic benefit closer to the wind farm project. As we'll discuss in more detail later, the deadline for application to the first innovation call is the 12th of February, and we aim to kick off any projects mid-2024. So the first innovation call is now open, and we're addressing two key challenges, which my colleague Stuart will talk about in more detail. But I just want to really emphasise the point, if you've got any queries or questions, please use the time at today's question and answer session, or reach out via email. We're a really friendly bunch and more than happy to answer some questions. If you move on to the next slide then, please, that's great. So just thought I'd touch a wee bit on what you as an applicant would actually get out of applying. So here you can see we've got a maximum of £300,000 available for the first innovation call. However, we do anticipate multiple smaller value projects to be proposed. The funding intensity, as you can see here, will range from 10 to 100% and will be allocated depending on project maturity, quality of the application, and the relevance to the West of Orkney Windfarm. We're looking to welcome innovative proposals from all different sized companies, research institutes, and very much anticipate the project proposals to be at different levels of maturity and credibility at this stage. Some of the submissions might be well-developed project proposals, others might be less developed or require further evidence to support the proposal. Please don't let this put you off applying. We want to see your innovations. So as EMEC, we're also offering support to develop proposals if required through physical workshops, online collaborations. We're also offering support in accessing alternative grant funding if you need it, and even access to our consentancy space for demonstration of the innovative projects. I really can't stress this enough. It's a great opportunity to get involved. At this point, I'm going to stop talking for a little while, you'll be glad to know, and hand over to my colleague Stuart to talk about the challenges and the innovation calls.
Thanks very much, Heather. I'm going to take maybe the next 10 minutes to give you a little bit of background as to where we arrived at these sort of challenge areas and the specific challenges that are making up these first two calls. If I can take the next slide, please. So there's quite a bit of work started went into this program before we really made anything too public. What we've done is look at the innovations and challenges that have been identified by multiple kind of organizations, and specifically the Offshore Wind Innovation Hub, which is run by the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult in the UK and the KTN. We've looked at the wind elements of, or offshore wind elements of the National Renewable Energy Lab in the USA, and the European Technology Innovation Programme for Wind in Europe. So across those three organizations, we've captured pretty much all of the main markets in the West anyway for the challenges that are identified by those particular organizations. That comes up with 331 individual challenges identified. Obviously, some of those are duplicated and overlapped. And we've been through a process to sort of down select those by grouping them into primarily first of all, into 8 key challenge areas. And then we've looked at and judged what we see as being the most applicable, most relevant, most immediate challenges within those, each of those 8 challenge areas. That brought us down to around about 37 specific challenges that are relevant to West of Orkney Windfarm and the wider sector. And then through a process with the West of Orkney Windfarm package managers and project leads, we then trimmed that down to 32 and went through a prioritization process to bring that down to the first 2 calls to prioritize. Throughout that process, the whole ethos, if you like, of this down selection process is to ensure that it's relevant for the West of Orkney Windfarm. It covers those aspects of reducing time, cost, and risk. And within risk is also safety as well. Obviously, it needs to be relevant to the project and particularly the development timescale. West of Orkney is very ambitious. It wants to be the first of the ScotWind projects to energise. And so anything that we are supporting in this programme needs to fit within that timescale. Obviously, elements like O&M, which are over the fuller life of the project, they can come in later, but they're equally important to look at this early stage. There's a key objective of West of Orkney Windfarm is to support the north of Scotland and companies in Scotland, looking for 40% or more of Scottish content, ideally more than that, but at least 40%. So that's a key driver as well. And last of the kind of considerations there, as Heather's already mentioned, is it being beneficial to the rest of the kind of wider offshore wind sector. In this means, or in this manner, to kind of help attract further sponsors, which Lisa will come back to later on. Next slide, please, Abby. So the 8 key challenge areas, as you might imagine, cover things like turbines and foundations, the grid, the transport and installation, to how to build the wind farm, the O&M phase, and then through the later stages of the project, looking at life extension, repowering, decommissioning. And then there's a kind of a cross-cutting section as well, which covers aspects like AI, machine learning, robotics, simulations, and so on and so forth. But what I'll do is I'll focus on give you the more detail of those 32 areas. If we can go to the next slide, please, Abby. So we end up with this kind of matrix across the top here, just looking at the first one, a metocean in green A2 and in green E1, form the first two of these 32 different challenge areas that we've identified as being high priority or higher than the others. And I'll go into more details on both of these, but it's worth a look after this call. All this information is up and available on the website, offshoreinnovation.scot. If you can take a look, see at that, there's a lot more detail in all of these areas. I'm pretty sure if you've been around, in and around the offshore wind world for quite a long time or a number of years, you'll recognize all of these as being key challenges across everything. But as I said, we're focusing on the key challenges for West of Orkney Windfarm. And if I can skip to the next slide, please, Abby. We'll go into the detail of the innovation calls. So I just wanted to put this in here for context. This weather system you can see up the top here was what's called an ex-tropical hurricane. So that's a hurricane that formed in the mid-Atlantic, didn't start out in the Bahamas or anywhere. And it progressed very deeply, very quickly to a very deep low, which then became a Category 3 hurricane. And we're not going to be doing any operations while this is here, but it's the sort of thing we need to know might be coming so we can get out of the way of it. And to give you sort of a little bit more context on that, in the multicolored chart to the bottom left, that is a wave height chart for significant wave height for the same storm. And the purpley ring that you see around the outside there is significant wave heights of between 13 and 15 meters. So you can imagine that the maximum wave height was considerably larger than that. No one's going to be doing any operations in conditions like this, but I just want to show you this is the kind of challenge that we have with this area, where there is a very exposed location, great for achieving big yields, big wind speeds, and capacity factor records, but it does come with these other challenges of some extreme events as well. Next slide, please, Abby. So the first, off the back of that, I suppose not surprisingly, the first big challenge is the metocean challenge, and understanding the wind, the wave conditions on site, and also en route to that site for the transport of major components from wherever they're being fabricated to the closer location, and then also getting them out to the site for installation. Understanding those metocean conditions sets the boundaries for what activities can be undertaken. And this is the kind of challenge that would run through the whole life of the project. It's not just about the transport and installation phase, but also the O&M phase as well, getting on the turbine in tough conditions and so on and so forth. Some examples of the technologies we might anticipate in here being brought forward into the program include obviously more sophisticated versions of existing measurement buoys, floating LiDAR, long-range remote sensing, perhaps using satellite information to kind of identify these kind of weather bomb type events 4 or 5 days and more further out, and to inform the activities that are going on site and locally. Within that as well, we're perhaps looking at more advanced modeling and prediction techniques than are currently exist at the moment, and that with that this is what we predicted, this is what we actually saw, and that kind of learning on the fly from the real world versus the remote sensing data that we have to develop and extrapolate and really give the accuracy that we really require for the metocean conditions and the decision making that then comes off that, whether to go out to the turbine, whether not, and so on and so forth. Next slide then, please, Abby. Then the next priority, of course, is, and the other call is transport and installation. We anticipate fully that there will be shorter weather windows than you might have experienced previously, say in the east of the UK type conditions. It's a much more exposed site. It more or less never stops being wavy. There's maybe only 2 or 3 or 4 days of calm per year, always in the summer. And it's quite an energetic environment. And then some of the extremes, are very extreme. And also some of the other conditions there, because of the 2,000-mile fetch, the wave periods, the wave lengths are going to be quite different from what other installers have experienced so far with offshore wind in more sheltered locations, sort of down the east coast of the UK. So we're looking at what innovations can be brought forward that can give us the best opportunity to complete the installation in the shorter weather windows that we anticipate seeing there. And these might be things like, just more capable equipment, but also other things that can save time in particular operations. For example, we've got there is sort of quick release and deck clamping of systems rather than, say, bolting and unbolting and so on. Use of robotics and so on like that might also be of interest in here. Keeping the person or the human, reducing that risk, keeping them out of harm's way. But these are the kind of 2 main calls for the metocean, understanding that best, and the transport and installation for short weather windows. I've given some examples here. These are not the full extent of the list. If you've got any other innovations that I've not mentioned here, then do not hesitate to put them forward. It really is an open call to draw out the new innovations and new ways of doing things that meet the needs of West of Orkney Windfarm and tick those boxes for reducing time, reducing cost, and reducing risk. So I think with that, that's a kind of a very quick wrap up, and I'll pass back to Heather so that she can take you through the application process.
Perfect, thank you, Stuart. I'm now going to speak to you about the application process and how you can get involved with the innovation calls. Next slide. So yeah, on our lovely new website, which you might have seen, you'll find a comprehensive list of documentation with all the background information you're going to need to submit an application, such as eligibility criteria, funding, contact details, FAQs, all that kind of stuff. But again, I'll re-emphasize the point, if you need further information, please just get in touch. The website, the web address is there, and the email address is just below it on the left-hand side of the screen. So on evaluating the proposals, we'll be looking for some key criteria to be demonstrated and achievable. So as we said before, we're looking for clear, demonstrable benefit to the West of Orkney Windfarm. We're looking for Scottish and UK benefit. We're looking for technical feasibility within the time frame, improvements to safety, impact on production or capacity factors, improved local supply chain capability, community and environmental considerations, and all these kind of things. So we're looking for some kind of key criteria. In terms of realistic timeframes as well, we do anticipate projects to run for no longer than 2 years. So that's just about a kind of benchmark there. You want to move on to the next slide then, Abby? So as you can see here, the application process will be in multiple stages, as you can see. So we've got stage 1, which will run until the deadline is the 12th of February. Stage 2, which is more detailed, deadline 28th of March, and then that will run onto the pitches, which we will aim to be have all of them held by the 11th of May. Just move on to the slides, slides here, and then I'll run through each stage of the application process. So initially, an application form can be found on our website. The application form will consist of 4 different sections, as you can see along the bottom here: organisational info, project information, funding purpose, and an applicant declaration. The whole process has been designed to be as easy as possible, and we have put together a specific application form guidance document, which you can access at the top of the application form through the button here, and that goes through each of the questions and says exactly what we want to see in it, essentially. Some questions ask for a quick overview, and others offer the ability to upload some sketches or any relevant documentation you think is necessary. Overall, this stage, really we want to provide a quick overview of your potential innovation for us to assess, and we reckon we'll be able to do that within the kind of limits. As I said, in terms of deadlines here, please, if you could submit all queries by the 5th of February, to give us time to get back to you in suitable timing. And then the deadline for this application is the 12th of February. So successful applications will be notified of the outcome essentially 2 weeks later, and we will provide feedback. So this could be, the feedback that you'll get could be kind of aspects to strengthen in the project proposal, a focus on kind of feasibility or kind of project management aspects of the innovation, or work on developing the requirement for the innovation. So we can skip on to the next slide there. I'll go through the next kind of stages. So successful applicants will be asked to prepare a detailed project proposal. The more formal detailed proposal will give successful candidates an opportunity to showcase their innovation in a much more detailed way. We will give a template structure for the proposal, and we can also provide some assistance to candidates if they wish for actually filling out that proposal. So you can kind of see some of the information that we would be looking for within that detailed project proposal to the right-hand side here. Kind of background experience of the candidate and how demonstrated ability to achieve the project success. Feasibility within the timelines, funding value requested, and that type of thing, and an overview of any risks and proposed mitigations. I think is really quite important. And then after you're successful at that stage, we will be moving towards the kind of pitches. Don't worry, we've not got any dragons on the committee, but we will be inviting candidates along to do a 10-minute pitch at the beautiful West of Orkney Windfarm offices in Edinburgh, and to demonstrate the benefit of their innovation, and then to ask for us to ask any questions, kind of tease out any kind of bits and things we want clarified. And then we will get back to you within, the idea being that the pitches will be held by the 11th of May, and applicants will be notified by mid-May, and then contracts drawn up by the end of May, and projects commence from June onwards. And as I said previously, we expect projects to run for no longer than 2 years. I'll now pass over to Lisa to run through a bit on the FAQs that we have on our website.
Thanks, Heather. So we'll come on to the Q&A that you've been asking just in a couple of minutes. Just to highlight, on the website, we've got an FAQ page where we have compiled some answers to what we think will be frequently asked questions. If there's any questions that come up today, we may add to this as well, just to make sure there's a full picture and addressing any questions that you may have. If after the webinar and you've got any questions that you haven't asked today, please give us a call or email us. We're happy to address any questions ahead of the call closing. If you can go on to the next slide, I'll just give a very brief overview of everything we've just covered in terms of the research and innovation programme. So the first stage of the programme was really working very closely with West of Orkney Windfarm, identifying site-specific challenges in order to establish the R&I programme. So there's been a lot of work happening behind the scenes in terms of evaluating the innovation outputs within the industry already, and the innovation capacity within regionally, and then establishing the challenge areas, as Stuart went over, to establish the first innovation call. We launched that in December last year, and the application deadline, just to make sure everyone's clear on that, is the 12th of February, so just a month today. And we are also really keen to bring in additional industry sponsors into this programme. So we want to broaden the remit of the programme so that it spans more than just the West of Orkney Windfarm, but other offshore wind developments across the region. So if you are interested in becoming a sponsor for the programme, please do get in touch. We are also starting to look at what the next call may include. So if you go on to the next slide, and I'll ask Erica to launch a poll. So we've got the two topics that are within the first call, but we're interested to know, like, what would you be most interested to see in the next innovation call? Okay, quite a good spread across the different challenge areas there, particularly around the other metocean topics, turbines and foundations, having quite a few in there, and operations and maintenance as well. So that's really, really useful intel for us in terms of designing the next call. So thank you very much for participating in the poll. That brings us to the end of the presentation side of the webinar, but I can see that there's quite a lot of questions going into the Q&A function. Please do keep adding them in if you've got any other questions, but I will just work my way through the questions now. The first one that's gotten the most upvotes is, can we get a copy of the presentations following the webinar? Yes, we will upload a PDF of the presentation slides onto the website. We will also be writing out answers to all of the questions that are asked today, so that there's a text response to any questions on the website as well. So we'll get both of that up onto the website, and we will email everybody that's joining the webinar today once that's been added online. The next question here is from Ryan. He's asking, can you confirm the maximum total funding for the call is 300,000 across all successful applicants, or is it a maximum of 300,000 per successful applicant? So for example, could there be 4 successful applicants receiving 300k each? Heather, are you happy to address that one?
Yes, not a problem at all. So thank you, Ryan, first of all, for your question. Yes, so we the idea is for it to have 300,000 for the innovation call. So we do expect it to be made up of multiple smaller projects, so 300,000 is the total. However, having said that if you have a project which you think needs more, we still want to hear from you. So don't be put off applying. Please get in touch with us directly. But yes, in terms of the total value for that innovation call is 300,000 overall successful applicants. I might take. I'm just looking here. There was another question came in from, was it Peter? I've actually lost a lot of my questions now, I think.
Yeah, there's the question here from Peter, which is similar to that, is the £1 million for the first 2 calls or for the whole programme?
Okay, sorry, I've jumped ahead there again. Sorry, Lisa.
Right.
But yes, I thought it may be quite a good idea to answer them together because they're relatively related. Again, at the moment, yes, the £1 million is for the overall programme. However, as we mentioned briefly, we are looking to get other developers involved with the programme. And as we get other developers involved with the programme, potentially they could bring more sponsorship in. So at the moment, the programme is an £1 million project. However, that could go up, and we potentially will be getting more money into the programme. So it's a bit of a yes and no on that one, I'm afraid.
And Heather, while I've got you here, there's a question here from Catherine saying, is there a timeline for the release of the other key challenge areas?
So at the moment, maybe I'll pass that one on to yourself, Lisa, if that's okay.
Sure. Well, so the easy answer to that is no, not at the moment. We are very much focused on the first call and just getting that one through the process, and we'll be seeing, given that this is the first call, how that works and if there's anything that we need to tweak for the future calls. And we're also doing an assessment of what we want that next calls to be. So we don't have a timeline as yet, but we do aspire to develop that and get that launched in due course. So I'm just looking through the list here. There's a question here from Nicholas. Does immersive training solutions fit the bill? Stuart, I think I'll direct that one to you if you're happy to pick that up.
Yep, happy to pick that up, thank you. Yeah, I guess training for tasks is probably going to be happening a little bit later in the timeline of the programme. It depends exactly on the details of what you're proposing, but as I said during my session, you know, we're open for any suggestions and any options that save time, save risk, or reduce risk, and save money. So it potentially, yes, definitely, it should be in there. Maybe Mike, I don't know if you want to come in on this one as well, because you have a better idea of the programme and staffing.
Yeah, I guess it will depend on the impact, the positive impact it will have on the project. And that's, we don't want to write anything off. If you can propose something that can have a significant impact either on reducing costs, reducing risk, reducing time, increasing efficiencies on the project, then that's that's what I'm judging the value of these projects on. And if that has, we believe, in comparison to other projects, more positive impact on the project than others, then certainly we'd be interested in taking it forward.
There are a couple of questions coming through here that have had quite a few upvotes themselves about intellectual property. So one is, can you say anything about intellectual property and if ownership remains with the originator? And the other question there is it possible to enter into an NDA to protect IP under development? Heather, are you happy to answer that one?
If I could answer it offline, if that's okay, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure. I think there is some guidance in the scope and guidance around the intellectual property. I expect it may be different for different applications. Next question from an anonymous attendee. Is this innovation call open only for Scottish firms? If not, could you indicate if partnership with Scottish firms will also be evaluated?
I can quite happily answer that one if you want, Lisa. So no, we are obviously focusing on Scottish supply chains and development of Scottish supply chains, but we don't want people to be put off if they're not a Scottish firm, basically. So yes, please put in your application. And as I said, we do want to demonstrate benefit to the Scottish supply chain and to the West of Orkney Windfarm, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be working at a Scottish firm. So.
Thanks for that. The next question here from Paul is, looking at all of the innovation calls, will the programme connect successful applicants who are tier 2 and tier 3 supply chain companies with the chosen tier 1 OEMs for the project delivery to ensure innovation gets considered and deployed within broader packages, and in brackets, turbines or cables, for example? Mike, I think perhaps this would be a good one for you to answer there.
Yeah, definitely. So this call is being launched ahead of our procurement activities, although we are ramping up on procurement activities this year across all packages, with a view of concluding them throughout 2020, late 24, mainly throughout 25. So this is actually well timed for us to see what's coming through, and for us to try and integrate or facilitate those types of discussions with suppliers as and when we contract them. The hope is, obviously, if there's a clear benefit to working on this site of your idea, that it would make sense for any supplier to be engaging with you to try and make it happen. But it's, as I say, it certainly is the intention to try and bring those conversations together and to try and get your solutions working with our suppliers. That's entirely the purpose of this exercise.
Thanks, Mike. The next question here from Richard is, can we apply on a mini consortium basis, e.g. 2 partner companies? Heather, happy to address that?
Yep, more than happy to talk about that one. So yes, we're more than happy for that. It could be an individual business, it could be a consortium, it could be a research institute. We're more than happy to have consortiums or many consortiums to apply for the innovation call. All that I would say on that one is that we will obviously have to contract everyone who will be involved within the innovation after they are successful. So yeah, more than happy. Please, again, have a chat to us about it.
Thank you. And I think there's one here for perhaps Stuart or Mike. For the transportation and installation call, would an analysis of different vessel options using software be within scope?
I just refer back to my previous comment where we will be judging this on the potential economic or efficiency benefits of the project. So We use modeling software looking at vessels and logistics that are in the market today. But if you're bringing something to the table that is beyond that in a more innovative way, and it is likely to have a positive impact on our economics and efficiency of delivering the project above other options in the call, then it certainly would be something we'd be interested in looking at. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. I might direct the next one to you as well, Mike, from Lucy. Could you expand on what is meant by 40% or more of Scottish content?
Yeah, no problem. So as part of the Scotland leasing process, all projects had to submit a supply chain development statement. Our SCDS is available on our website. You can download that and have a look through it. And within that, we have proposed certain amounts of both UK and Scottish content that we are targeting to deliver across the project lifecycle. So in this case, we have committed to delivering at least, I believe, 40% Scottish content across the project. I just need to confirm that, but that's what we are looking to achieve. That's our ambition, sorry, to achieve on the project. So it's a hugely tall order, but again, this is over the lifetime of the project, including operations and maintenance. So it's calls like this and opportunities like this to try and bring ideas from the market that maybe wouldn't otherwise get the opportunity to come into projects that maybe go or ask for these things too late when they're in formal procurement exercises. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to flesh out, pull through ideas into our project as early as possible so that they can bed themselves with us, with our suppliers, that give you the best opportunity to form part of that local content target going forward.
Thanks, Mike. Heather, I'll direct the next question to you from Tim. For a 2-year project, what is the expected outcome, or TRL/CRL? So options could include volume production ready or prototype demonstrated. Does technology have to be ready for use on the first turbine?
So this is a kind of interesting question. We don't actually have an expectation on what kind of TRL or CRL the projects will get to. I'll maybe let Stuart jump in on this after I've kind of spoken about it. But we don't have a fixed expectation on the kind of 2-year project. We want to see, as I said previously, we are expecting projects to be all sorts of kind of maturity level and right the way through. So we don't have a specific expectation is the answer to that, but I don't know, Stuart, if you maybe, but we are, I would probably say that the intensity of the funding really will be dependent, obtained will be dependent on the kind of maturity level of the project, I think.
Yeah, I would just chip in on that. Obviously, I think, as I said during the down selection process, these technologies and innovations that we're bringing forward need to be within or usable and provide the benefit within the time frame that West of Orkney Windfarm are working to. So that varies depending on what it is. If it's a decommissioning innovation, it's obviously towards the back end. But if it's an installation one, then it's right at the very beginning. And obviously O&M is through the life. So it really does depend on what the innovation is that's coming forward, what the time frame for that would be. But yes, it needs to achieve suitability for use in the project, whether you define that by bankability or TRL or CRL, whatever. Mike, maybe you want to add a little bit to that.
No, I agree. Again, it comes down to my point about impact, and there's no point in bringing something forward if it's going to be, it's too far out for the project. But again, this project has it's a 30-year life cycle in this project, so we can still, if it's something we can bring into the project over time, while it's operational, to have an impact, and that's fascinating. Really, it'll be interesting seeing that. If it's something more focused on the construction phase, then obviously we're looking at much closer to market type innovation, because we'll be going into construction from 27 onwards.
Thanks, Mike. I'll direct the next question to you as well, from Peter. So some of the innovation topics are already commercially available. How does one provide information of those to you? So things that are already commercially available.
Well, I mean, if it's commercially available, we can procure it in the market. Then I guess these are things that we can procure in the market. I guess what we'd be looking to do if it was commercially available is try to maybe advance it further through this call, try and take it to the next stage of development. If there's something that you think is interesting for us, but you need a boost to take it, like I say, to the next level, that's the sort of thing that we'd be interested in doing this, because this isn't a formal procurement exercise for commercially available technologies or methodologies. This is us trying to do things a little bit differently and pull things through that wouldn't otherwise get the chance in a standard commercial procurement exercise. So that would be my feedback on that one.
There's a question here around the design for short weather window installation. It says, I assume this is limited to XXL monopile / jacket related installation solutions. Will a later call have a similar theme but for floating foundations? Mike, are you happy to pick that one up?
It's a good point, and I wrote that note to myself and drawn a box around it here because this is a fixed foundation site. I don't think we mentioned that. It's 125 fixed foundations, currently looking at either jackets or monopiles, or XXL monopiles, as was rightly pointed out there. I don't think the call is specifically on foundations. So, there is installation of cables, and we have significant challenges with boulders on the site as well, which will be interesting to try and address in terms of how we either remove boulders or install within a site with boulders, both foundations and cables. And even there could well be some interesting innovations with installing turbines, particularly in relatively high wind speeds. Maybe not the full overhaul of the process, but maybe there's certain innovations that allow us to increase operational activities or increase activities in maybe higher wind speeds. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what comes out of this, but it isn't purely focused on foundations.
There's a question here from Jana saying, I am expected to start working on the project full-time, funding dependent, in November 2024. What is the latest expected project start date? Heather, are you happy to come in on that?
So yeah, happy to come in on that one. We are aiming to start off the projects in mid-June, I think is what we would be saying. However, I'm not going to rule out specific case-by-case basis at the moment. So if the November start is the earliest we could definitely talk about that. However, it might be a case where we have to adjust the length of the project, say it would be 1.5 years as opposed to 2 years or something like that. But yes, absolutely, please put in your application, please highlight this within the application, or even have a chat with us individually beforehand, and we can kind of chat through the specifics of individual circumstances, if that's okay.
Thanks, Heather. Question here from David. On the foundations, can we get some rough details, please? Jacket, monopile, GB, weight, height, installation start date. Expect that might be stuff that we need to follow up on following the call, but Mike, is there anything you want to add onto that?
Yeah, there's some really high level maximum dimensions and weights in our design envelope within our environmental impact assessment work, which is all online. So worthwhile looking through what information is online just now on the westoforkney.com website, both in the scoping reports and in our consent documentation. We are in the process of wrapping up our pre-feed activities just now. So what comes out of that will be going into our feed activities from the end of Q1 onwards. I think, that's the point at which I think more useful information, I should say, might be available to share, probably on a more confidential basis to those successful applicants in the process.
Mike, there's another question here from Tony that I think I'll direct to you. What are the project timescales in terms of design, construction, and generation?
Yep. So currently we're working towards, we have a grid connection date within the first HND1 exercise, National Grid's Holistic Network Design exercise of 2029. so we're working towards late 29. So that we're working towards a connection date of late 29, early 30. The interesting thing with this project clearly is that you have to install it within some very tight weather windows, which is the purpose of this call. We can actually only install between April and September, currently on our estimating modelling. So we think that if we started construction of our foundations in 27, which is a current target, we would be wrapping up overall construction in 2031. So it's a long-term construction program, which is why, again, things like this are so interesting, because time is money in offshore wind construction, as you're aware. So the less time we can spend building, the more economic the project is. At the moment, it's a very long construction period, given the short weather windows, or annual construction periods that we've got. But the intention is that we'd hopefully achieve consent for the project at the end of this year, beginning of next, enter the allocation round 7 in 2025, move into FID in 26 and start construction 27.
Thanks, Mike. Next question here is regarding the timeline. Is the 2-year project aimed to be finalised before start of the actual farm installation, or can the proposed work also be running during installation as a demonstrator? Mike, are you happy to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, given timing, we would hopefully wrap this up before construction starts, but we would be undertaking a lot of procurement exercise, a lot of procurement activities during this period. So as the projects, the innovation projects sort of mature, we would look to try and be facilitating those discussions with our suppliers, bringing people together, talking about how to do things, and that's when we'll really start, workshopping solutions as a group between the project, this is the offshore wind project, the innovation project, and our suppliers. But hopefully that would allow us to integrate these things into the process and the planning of the project before we actually get it hit the water.
Thanks. Heather, there's a question here from Richard. As a Scottish company having already achieved innovative solutions for other offshore wind projects out with West of Orkney, can you still apply?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so we're very, yep, absolutely, Mike, so very keen response there. Yes, you absolutely can. What we will do is obviously we need to make sure that we're not going to be doubling on funding or that type of thing, and there's no conflict of interest, but absolutely we would absolutely welcome any applications. And as I said, just get in touch with us, maybe with specifics, and we can make sure that there's no kind of specific conflicts. Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but please don't be put off applying.
No, definitely not. I mean, if you've developed something on another project and you think that it's still, it requires an additional push into the market, or you can take it further with our project, I think that would be fascinating to see. I think that's exactly what we want to see. That would be a very kind of mature, sort of commercially ready idea that we could possibly push further for our project. I think that'd be great.
There's a question here from Simon. Are EMEC or anybody else planning to facilitate consortium building? So helping form consortiums with complementary skills to meet one another. Heather.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to take that one. So at the moment, we don't have plans to. Obviously, at the moment, we can expect people, I guess, to come to us with a mini consortium built. However, to be honest, if that's something we have said, we are more than happy to help provide support with project proposals. So if that is something that we could facilitate, in the nature of the way EMEC works, we love to kind of share knowledge and get people working together and collaborate. So if it's something we can do, and if it's something that would suit, then I'm sure we would. However, it's not something we are actually actively planning to do at the moment.
Thanks for that. There's another question here, Mike, about the local content, saying, I thought the UK/Scottish government's requirements were for 60% local content. Why aim so low?
That's UK content, and we were talking about Scottish content earlier. So, cool. Yeah. So we've been looking at 60% UK content with 40% Scotland, yeah.
Okay. And there's a quick question from Diane, follow up to the presentations being uploaded online, needing to share them ASAP internally. I'll take an action after the webinar today. We can get the presentation slides on the website this afternoon. So we'll send that out to everybody once that's online. That's easy enough to do. We are recording this webinar, so we also plan to publish that early next week, alongside answers to all of these questions as well. But the webinar being launched on YouTube and the answers to the questions, that will only be next week, but we can get the presentation slides up online today. So hopefully that answers that question. And there's a question here from Peter asking, are you attending the Offshore Renewables Conference in Glasgow on the 24th and 25th? I can answer that from EMEC side. Our commercial director, Matthew Finn, will be there, and there is an Orkney pavilion, which I really encourage you to go and see what Orkney can offer the offshore wind market, and go and speak to Matthew from the EMEC perspective. Mike, I know you guys are going to be there too. If you want to say anything on that.
Yeah, we will. We'll have a stand. We've got a full supply chain team there. We've got a new project director, Stuart McCauley's going along. I'll be there. We'll have a full squad, and we'll be speaking as well in a couple of sessions.
Great. There's a couple of extra questions just being added in. From Lucy here. Is the location lat long of the wind farm available on the website? I think it'll be available on the West of Orkney Windfarm website. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, there's loads of documents on our website. So if you go to our website, there's a number of buttons at the top right-hand corner. There's the documentation library. If you go into that, there's a lot of documents. There's also the planning and consenting button as well. That gives you all our planning and consenting documentation. So hopefully everything should be there that you need.
And a question here from Steve. If we have technology that fits the later calls, do we wait for those calls to come up or submit information earlier? Heather, pass that one over to you.
Yep. So I guess reach out and have a conversation with us. Definitely. First port of call. But yes, don't submit as part of a call that's not relevant, if that makes sense. But please reach out and have a conversation with us. And as we said, we're quite keen to understand what people are wanting to see next, although we don't have kind of fixed timelines for that just yet.
Brilliant. I think that is us made our way through all of the questions that have come through pretty much bang on time. As I mentioned, we will be compiling answers to everything, all the questions that have come through, and sharing that with all participants from today early next week. So keep an eye out for that. And we will add all the kind of frequently asked questions to the FAQs on the website as well. We'll update the website today with the PowerPoint slides that we went through, and we can send that out to all of those that have registered so that you know when that's up online. And we'll also let you know once this webinar recording is available online as well. So I'm going to draw the webinar to a close now. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the session today. It's been really great to see so many people attend and show their interest in the innovation call. I'd like to extend my thanks to my EMEC colleagues, Heather, Stuart, Grant, Erica and Abby, and also to Mike Hay for joining us from the West of Orkney Windfarm. And yeah, just thank you very much for attending today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.